Don't miss Old Navy's Saturday Steal. Tomorrow only, get incredible deals on all your favorite Old Navy styles. All dresses are 50% off. Plus, super soft leggings are just $6 for women and $5 for girls and toddler girls. And comfy tunic tees are just $10 for women, girls, and toddler girls. Hurry in for our Saturday Steal. Tomorrow only at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Valid 9/16. Excludes in-store clearance dresses, leggings and tunic tees. Select styles only.
This is the place where NFL legends live on and share their stories. This is the place for our Spotlight on the Positive segment, sharing what's good in the world of sports. This is also the place for the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. This place I speak of, Thursday Night Tailgate. Let's say hello to your hosts, Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari. Guys, take it away.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming back and joining us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate, your home for interviews and insights from some of the greatest players in the history of the NFL. Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari here, and tonight we have a wonderful array of guests, to share with you over the next couple of hours. But before we get into tonight's show, and I want to start off by bringing in my co-host, Bob Lazzari. Bob, how are you tonight, my friend?
Doing well. Thanks for everything, Chris. How's everything with you?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, my friend. And folks, before we talk about tonight's show, we want to send out our thoughts and prayers to everybody dealing with the aftermath of both hurricanes, right? Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma. So everyone in Houston and eastern Texas, Louisiana, plus our friends down in Florida and here in Georgia as well, our thoughts and our prayers are with you. Plus, we've taken a cue from J.J. Watt and started a GoFundMe campaign to raise money to help support the victims of both of these storms. So all we're asking our listeners to do is donate $1. $1, right? If everyone would donate $1, what a difference we could make in the lives of people who are literally starting all over again. Please help us make a positive impact and help the victims of these storms rebuild their lives. If you'll go online to our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com, you'll see our campaign there in the middle of our homepage, and click donate. The funds they go directly to the American Red Cross, who are down in both locations trying to help folks, like I say, rebuild their lives. So please help us help those affected by the storms and help them get back on track. Our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone through this process. Again, on our site, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. You'll see it right there in the middle of the homepage. Click donate. We'd really appreciate your support. And on a lighter side, I want everyone to know that next week we're going to be celebrating our 6th anniversary of Thursday Night Tailgate. And we'll also be inducting our 4th class into our TNT Guest Hall of Fame. And we are proud to announce that this year's Hall of Fame class is going to include the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio, Mr. Bo Bach, former Cardinals and Dolphins Pro Bowl linebacker E.J. Jr., former Bears and Panthers Pro Bowl wide receiver Musa Muhammad, former Dolphins Pro Bowl left tackle Richmond Webb, former Jets and Dolphins defensive back Kerry Glenn, and former Steelers kicker Jeff Reed. So again, Bo Bach, E.J. Jr., Musa Muhammad, Richmond Webb, Kerry Glenn, and Jeff Reed. They're going to be joining us next week, and we'll be inducting them into our Guest Hall of Fame. So we're very excited, looking forward to a big celebration next week. So, please put a reminder on your calendar. Be sure to join us. We want you all to be a part of a very special anniversary edition of the show. So, Bob, hard to believe, 6 years, my friend. It's going to be a great night next week.
That's always a great show to do, Chris. And I was thinking as you were reading the names, I would love to have those players on one team in their prime. They were that's quite the group there. We could have Bo Bach to coach them, right? But
yeah, there you go.
Those are all great guys, and I think most of them have even appeared on the TV side up there, because you could tell they're very accommodating, beautiful people, and that's part of the reason why they're in the Hall of Fame.
Right. And for our listeners, again, please engage with us over the course of the next week over social media, particularly on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you listen to the show and you enjoy it, please let us know and share your thoughts and your feedback. We want you all to be a part of this celebration next week, because not only do we want to celebrate our guests and induct them into our Hall of Fame, but we also want to celebrate our listeners as well. So be sure to join us next week. It's going to be a big show, and like I say, if you'll interact with us and share some of your thoughts, about the show on social media, we sure would appreciate it as well. And as all of you know, we are brought to you by the great folks over at Kaiven Foods, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, the Salt Creek Golf Retreat up in beautiful Nashville, Indiana, our friends over at Tops, and our partners at the NFL Alumni Association and Mike Ditka's organization, the Gridiron Greats, who we love. Check them out online at gridirongreats.org. And it's time for us to get into this week's segment of Bob's.
It's time for another edition of Bob's Take. So, Bob, tell us, what's on your mind tonight?
So, Bob, I want to start off our Bob's Take segment this week by getting your thoughts on, the wild overreaction that we all have, as football fans, to players who either have a really big week or guys who, unfortunately on the opposite side, have a really bad one. We saw Alex Smith go off last week against the Patriots, and, suddenly the talk of how quickly Pat Mahomes is going to be taking over the starting quarterback job there in Kansas City. Well, that's, certainly quieted down. People are down on Andy Dalton after a terrible outing against the Ravens last week. Jared Goff is now the second coming after a blowout win over the Colts. So, Bob, what's your take? We're all day-to-day health-wise. You and I know that, particularly well. But when you're talking about NFL quarterbacks, hero one day, bum the next. What are your thoughts?
That's very true, Chris. And a lot of it is blown out of proportion, as you can tell. It's a brand new season, and the only reason why the spotlight is on some of these quarterbacks is because we recognize their names, but they're with new squads, because even if they're with the new teams, that these rosters change an awful lot. You mentioned a guy like Andy Dalton. I think we all can agree he's not going to be as bad as he was last week. I mean, he had a pretty terrific day. When you have 4 picks, Chris, and 3 of them can pretty much be put on yourself, and he also fumbled. I mean, that's not a good way to start the season. He does have a couple weapons in that lineup, but and then you look at a guy like Cam Newton, Chris. I mean, it's hard to know how he's going to be coming off the shoulder surgery he had. He's got a couple good weapons in that lineup now. McCaffrey, I love that guy. I loved him at Stanford, and I love him in the NFL. I mean, who knows if Newton's game is going to change, Chris? We know, and we said this going back to the Michael Vick days, that a lot of these quarterbacks cannot go at a certain pace the way they try to play the game. And that's one of the reasons I think that a guy like Kaepernick is still unemployed. It's just the way his game doesn't translate to the NFL anymore. But I think that has something to do with the game that Cam Newton had last week. Very, very nondescript, and he's a guy that always is garnering headlines. And, of course, you have a guy like Goff, who had a great game, too. I mean, the way the Rams could not have opened their season any better. Is he going to be that good all year long? I don't think so. I think we all can agree on that. So, again, it is overrated. When guys do very bad, they're going to take some heat because they have the name. And some of these young guys, they're going to try to build them up because they're so young and they're the future of the NFL. But guess what? They're not going to keep doing what they did. So, yeah, as you said, opening the show, this is something that, if you talk to me in week 5 or 6, Chris, then we start seeing really things. The fog will clear, and then we'll see, where we're really at as far as talent and where these guys, what kind of year they're all going to have.
And Bob, a couple of teams have already pulled their starters, from last week, starting quarterbacks, I should say. Houston looks like they're going to be going with Deshaun Watson tonight over Tom Savage. The Colts are looking at replacing Scott Tolzien, who they pulled during the course of the game last week in favor of Jacoby Brissett. They're still waiting to find out, where Andrew Luck is, right? The shoulder injury, is really taking its toll. He may be several more weeks before Luck even starts to throw, let alone get back in a game. So, Bob, what's your take on the Texans and Colts only giving Savage and Tolzien, a half, 3/4 before, they already pull those guys in favor of somebody else?
Unlike the Colts, Chris, I think the Texans are under more of a win-now mentality, and that puts pressure on pretty much everybody in the organization. I think we'll all agree. We agreed last week that that's probably the best defensive unit, especially in the AFC, if not the entire league. And a guy like Savage, now, this is a guy, Chris, that got sacked 6 times in one half. Are you going to blame it on him? Well, I don't think you can. Their offensive line, they were playing without a couple guys. But, again, this is a guy that got sacked 6 times in one half. His pocket awareness is what they're complaining about. It's not a question that he played incredibly, incredibly bad. I mean, when you get sacked like that, he had I think it was either his agent or one of the guys. They basically said that he definitely did not play as bad as people thought he played. They looked at the videotape, Chris, and it was just incredible that almost every pass he threw hit the guy's hands. But there really wasn't much that could have been done. That is kind of a quick hook. And the young guy is the new upcoming guy. And again, with the best defense in the league, Chris, I think it's a win-now thing. So that's the deal with him. As far as the Colts, that team, you could not have started a worse way to start the season as they did. Tolzien, that's kind of when Jacoby Brissett, is let go by New England, and all of a sudden has just about enough time to learn the offense, Chris, and they're going to put him in the starting lineup. That was a tough thing, too. So, again, I think we're at a time in the NFL where it's a win-now mentality, not just for the better-than-average team, but there's no patience out there for anybody. I mean, if you don't perform, there's plenty of guys out there to take your place, and I think that's two of the things that you just mentioned. Those are two teams that there's some pressure on, both coaches too.
Bob, one more before we move on with the rest of the show. One more take, and it's sort of a review of last week's conversation. I want to go around the league real quick and remind everybody about who you have as division winners in each division, the wild cards, and then let's get into our AFC Championship games, and then who we think is going to go on and play and win in the Super Bowl. So let's go around real quick. AFC East, you had the Patriots, correct?
I did. After last week, that was kind of a nightmare, Chris. But I think and Tony Collins will be the first one to tell you that was unexpected, and even in our worst dreams, nobody up in here in New England could have seen that coming. But it happened, and we all know that guys like Belichick will make adjustments. I thought he'd make more adjustments than he did during that game. But we know, they'll probably go down to New Orleans this week, make a statement, and then everything will be kind of fine. And then, when they do finish 12-4, 13-3, everybody said, that's the team we were looking for. So that's where we're at with them, Chris. I don't see anybody overtaking them, and they're my pick to go to the Super Bowl, as you know.
All right, so let's go to the other divisions. Give us your division winners in the AFC North, South, and then the AFC West. Who do you have as the other 3 division winners?
Well, let's see. I just lost all my notes because my computer went down here. But the North, I definitely had your Steelers team winning. There was no question about it. I think they're on a collision course with the Patriots, and I just don't see a team like Cincinnati or any other team giving them any guff in that division, and so they are on a clear path to play the Steelers in the championship game. Barring any injuries, Chris, we know how that works too.
Right. So I believe you had the let's take a look at my notes. I believe you had the Patriots, Steelers, Titans, and Raiders as division winners. Does that sound? No, I think you actually had the Chiefs as the division winners. My bad. So according to what I got,
you're right.
Patriots, Steelers, Titans, Chiefs as your division winners. Wild cards being the Raiders and the Texans. Still comfortable there?
Pretty so. I'll have to go with it, Chris. Things after the first week, I'm not even going to look back now, but that sounds about right.
All right. So, and as you just hinted at, you've got the Patriots and the Steelers in your AFC Championship game.
Yes, sir.
And then you've got the Patriots going back to the Super Bowl yet again, right? So that's who you've got coming out in the AFC. All right, let's move over to the NFC quickly. You had the Cowboys, Packers, Falcons, and Seahawks as your division winners. And I believe you went with the Giants and the Cardinals. The only one I didn't have in my notes was who your other wild card team would be in the NFC. So does it sound right, Cardinals, or did you go a different direction?
Why not? Let's stick with them, Chris.
Either that or I couldn't remember if it was, the Giants and the Cardinals or if you went Giants and the Lions. But, all right, so we'll say it's the Cardinals. But either which way, NFC Championship game, who's coming out?
Definitely Green Bay, Chris. I like them. And there's a good chance you may see Green Bay and Atlanta square off again. I think Atlanta is going to have a less of a hangover than some of these other Super Bowl teams that should have won that didn't win. But I still think they're the two best teams in that league. You can make an argument for Dallas, but that's how I'm going to go. I'm going to go Green Bay over Atlanta. I like Green Bay going to the Super Bowl again, Chris. I picked them a couple years ago, but I still think, having watched Rodgers last week, they had a very nondescript 17-point performance, but the guy hasn't lost a step, and they're only going to get better.
All right, so you've got Patriots, Packers, in Super Bowl 52. Who ultimately wins?
I will never bet against New England. I've lost too much money over the years doing that, and I learned my lesson. And having lived here in New England, you don't bet against them. If they happen to lose, you bet on them the next year. But yeah, that's the way I'm going. I still think when they get that defense in pretty good shape, barring any injury, of course, to the great Brady, I think that gets them to the postseason, and then I think they'll be fine. Looking at that lineup, Chris, they just have too many good weapons, and I think Belichick, being a defensive coach, he gets it fixed, at least fixed enough to go a long way.
All right. Well, we agree on the four teams in the championship games. I have both of them. I have all the same teams. I got the Steelers and the Patriots. I got the Packers and the Falcons. I, too, think the Packers go on and get into the Super Bowl, and I'm not betting against my boys in Pittsburgh to make it finally over the hurdle of the Patriots. And it's a repeat of Super Bowl 45, but this time my boys come out on top. So that's how I've got things rounding out this year. So. All right, folks, TNT, we are sponsored by Kyvan Foods. NFL star Reggie Kelly brings the authentic flavor of traditional Southern cooking to market with his Kyvan Foods products. Made with the finest ingredients, Kyvan Foods invites you to appreciate the goodness of the exceptional flavors in their salsas, their sauces, their apple butter, and their other fine products as well. Make Kyvan items a part of your tailgating spread, either at the game or at home, home gating with your family and friends. The taste is unbeatable. Available through Walmart.com and at select Kroger stores, or you can order online through Amazon or Kyvan's website itself at Kyvan82.com. And Kyvan is spelled Kyvan. Baseball season, right? We're turning towards the postseason, and if you love the game, you've got to go check out the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. Their executive director, Jewell, will be joining us a little bit later on in this hour. So they were inducted into the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence Hall of Fame. The museum is a very cool experience for everybody in the family because you get to go walk their live production line and see some of their 1.8 million bats that they make every year, and they've been doing it now for 132 years. Don't miss the bat vault. You hear me bragging about that every week here on Thursday Night Tailgate because you can go in there and hold game-used bats from some of the game's greatest legends, guys like Hank Aaron and Ted Williams, my hero growing up, Willie Stargell. To find out more information about the museum and to book your visit, go to sluggermuseum.com. And we're also proud to be sponsored by our good friends, at the T&T Hall of Famer Randy Manier and the great folks up at the Salt Creek Golf Retreat in Nashville, Indiana, which was voted one of the top 20 small towns, by the way, folks, in this country by Smithsonian Magazine. So let's hear a word from our friend Joe LaGenusa about the Salt Creek Golf Retreat.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giants fullback Randy Manier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your rounds, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today.
Yeah, we can't say enough great things about the golf course, the condos, and, of course, Randy's staff as well. Go online to saltcreekgolf.com to see for yourself how great a place it is. All right, now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is former Detroit Lions Pro Bowl wide receiver Herman Moore. Let me give you some more background on Herman. He's from Danville, Virginia, played his college ball at the University of Virginia, where he remains first all-time in average yards per reception with 22. He's second in total receiving yards at just over 2,500 and second in receiving touchdowns with 27. In 1990, he became the all-time ACC leader in single-season receiving yards at just under 1,200. He was a consensus All-American that season and finished sixth in the Heisman Trophy balloting. In 2010, he was selected to the State of Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. He was a first-round draft pick, the 10th overall selection by the Detroit Lions in 1991, and he played in the league from 91 to 2002. And all but one of those seasons was in Detroit. He played his final season with the New York Giants. He was selected to 4 consecutive Pro Bowls from 1994 to 1997. He led the league in receptions twice, and he finished his career with 670 receptions for 9,174 yards. He scored 62 touchdowns. All three are second all-time in Detroit Lions history, and we're honored that he is back with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Herman, Chris, and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Herman. Pleasure. Hey, thank you guys both. Thanks for having me.
So, Herman, I wanted to start our time with you tonight by talking about your alma mater, the University of Virginia. Program has struggled a little bit over the last decade, 2-10 last year. They're off to a 1-1 start, though, this year. How do you feel about, your alma mater and the direction that they're headed right now?
Well, when Bronco Mendenhall came in, I think there was a lot of excitement. I think there still is a lot of excitement about the Cavaliers. However, they just have not been able to produce the results. Last year, only having 2 wins was a little bit of a downer. I mean, not even a little bit. It was a big downer because there was so much expectation and hype going into the season that they were expecting to get better performances, but they just could not kickstart the offense. The defense had some holes, of course, and they just could not compete at the level that you need to if you're going to start moving forward. And after Mike London and the era that he had there, and people, Mike had some up and down years. However, they felt the program was still moving in the right direction in terms of recruiting. I thought they had some pretty good recruiting years leading up even to the time before Bronco came in. But unfortunately, it just did not, when it was time to step up and play not just the top teams like Louisville and Clemson, or not even Clemson, but Louisville and some of the other teams they played that year. They just did not have the competitive spirit I felt that you expected to see from a team coached by Bronco.
So to that end, Herman, if that's not meeting your expectations, right? And I'm sure other alumni and that are so ingrained in that program and the folks of that. What do they got to do? What's got to change in order for them to be more competitive in the ACC?
Well, to be competitive, you got to be able to recruit. The only way you can recruit and continue to get the good in-state and get some of the kids out of state that are top talent around the country is you got to be able to produce wins. Right now, Virginia's not that team. Right now, when you look at even this season this year, the win over William and Mary, 28-10, that was a good victory. It's one that they expected. I think most people expected them to go really 3-0 in the first three games. Indiana was a tough loss. They got really not anything on offense, and it's just not a team that's able to produce those big plays. To step up and be able to be competitive right now, they're going to have to be able to get this team to play at least at the level of the talent that they have. And right now, I think they're underachieving. I won't say this is the most talented team, but I think they're capable of a lot more. But the schedule is only going to get tougher, and I just don't see this turning out to be a great year for the Cavaliers.
So, Herman, I want to go back to your time there, and you and Sean Moore, who was your quarterback, and Terry Kirby. You guys made an outstanding trio over the last couple of seasons you were at Virginia. Talk about what it was like playing alongside those guys.
Wow, you're taking me way back. Playing with Terry Kirby from over in Tabb, Virginia, Sean Moore out of Martinsville, and myself. I mean, you start to acquire these guys, a good talented group of guys, and I started to look back, and when we talked about some of the things we may talk about on the show, with that team, we started to really change the face of Virginia football. And it started probably a few years before that. And I was a redshirt freshman in Virginia in 1987. And we were just on the cusp. We went to the All-American Bowl against BYU. And then the bowl game became the expectation. It became the benchmark, competitive positioning in the ACC, if not even trying, we're trying to win the ACC every year. And we started to build that culture. And we did that because we had great players, and we had very good players like Terry Kirby, Sean Moore, Chris Slade, Ray Roberts, Matt Blunden. I mean, we can go on and on. Greg Jeff. We had guys that were all over the NFL, and not just making it to the league, but also making an impact on the league. And so that's how you do it. That's how you start to bring in guys. You develop that talent, and then you take them to the next level, and then the expectation and the bar gets set higher.
Bob, questions for Herman?
Great to speak with you again, Herman. I want to talk about your rookie year, talk about expectations coming into the league as a first-round draft pick, Herman. And you only started one game. It seemed like you did a lot of observing, but you had some good players to look up to, like a Perryman and guys like that. Just wondering what that first year was like, Herman. Was it disappointing that you didn't play as much as you wanted, or were you like a sponge collecting information, which would make you go on to have such a great career?
Well, to take your audience back a little bit, when I came in 1991, the Detroit Lions, there was a quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, Andre Ware. You also had Rodney Peete and Eric Kramer. But they really believed Andre Ware was the future. He was a guy that was picked the year before me, first-round pick, and they were running the run and shoot. That was the offense filled with a lot of small players. They were all 5'10" or shorter for the most part. And there was only one guy, Willie Green, that was a little taller, but he wasn't that guy for that system. But when I came in at 6'4", 6'4.5", then we had a guy, Reggie Barrett, we picked in the third or fourth round, who was 6'5". We would dub, basically these new big receivers that were coming into the NFL, and it just did not work with our being in the slot all the time. I was a player in the college that moved around a lot, and then just trying to learn that quick. The ball comes out in like 1 or 2 seconds, and the quarterback's always sprinting right or sprinting left, and it wasn't a lot of traditional drop back passing or anything like that. It was a little bit of a learning curve. I also struggled a little bit just getting acclimated to the speed of the NFL. But those 12 games that I sat and I watched, I learned quite a bit, and I learned how to be a NFL football player without being destroyed right out the gate.
You also had the honor of watching Barry Sanders a lot, Herman, which isn't a bad thing. And I'm checking out his stats from that year. Almost 1,600 yards rushing, 4.5 yards per carry. We used to watch him on TV. Herman always looked like the guy was running left to right, and then it was amazing to watch that man run. But more than that, I always respected how the guy carried himself. Same with you, Herman. Not a big celebratory guy on touchdowns. Was that something that was way in your past that you learned to be humble? How did that all shake out with you guys?
Well, coming from a program like Virginia, it was a team sport, and it wasn't where you get into those big celebrations. George Welsh, my college coach, he wasn't going to go for that. He really frowned upon any guys having celebratory dances and all that stuff, or doing anything that was really considered unsportsmanlike. However, again, going into the NFL is a show. It's entertainment, so that's not frowned upon. However, you talked about a guy, Barry Sanders. He really was one that if you looked at how he carried himself, how, everyone talks about, play like you've been there, and when you score a touchdown, just give it to the official. Now, I have to admit, I wasn't always in that mindset, because it takes a lot to get into the end zone. So when I got there, I really wanted to celebrate a lot more, because it's not an easy feat. But a consummate professional in Barry Sanders, he was a creator. He was definitely one of those quiet leaders who did it more by example than by vocal. And when you have a player like that, I think it starts to really go over the team. It spread really and became very viral with the team. And I just was appreciative of the opportunity to play with him and play with Brett Perriman, who you mentioned, who I thought was a very underrated receiver, playing a number 2, but could have easily been a 1 in the NFL, even though he was smaller in stature. But he played with a big heart. And I was just blessed to have a lot of veteran players on that team that year.
Herman, I got a couple of more for you for your time back at the University of Virginia. And your second season, 1989, you guys go up to Happy Valley and you beat number 12 ranked Penn State 14-6. It was their first season, the first time they had lost an opening game in 25 years at that time. You scored both touchdowns in that game, a 24 and an 11-yard catches. Talk about what you remember about going up to Happy Valley and getting that win.
I remember one thing about the win, and that was I think they were a highly ranked football team, and it was the first time in our team history we had beat a top ranked team like that for a few years. I mean, it had been a while. Even though we played some nationally ranked teams, it had taken us a few years since our last victory over one. With Penn State, Joe Paterno coach team, it's going to be gritty. They're going to have a good defense. And for us, our defense did a phenomenal job against their offense. And they really, I thought, did a great job in the first half. I think they also did a great job in the second half, to where we basically shut them down. And that was a great win for us. And the ability for us to come away with a victory in such a big game on the road was great. And to catch 2 touchdown passes and end up in I think it was Sports Illustrated. Hey, I was in heaven.
The opposite side of that coin, Herman, the following year, you guys get all the way up to number 1 in the country in mid-October. And then Georgia Tech comes in and ekes by you guys on a last-second field goal, 41-38. And you guys would go on, unfortunately, to lose 4 of the last 5 games after that. Did that loss, was it that deflating, to have gotten, as far, you've climbed the mountain, you've gotten to number 1, and then you lose a heartbreaker, and then it at least appears on paper that you guys might have gone into a funk. What was it like, having come out of that game, lose that game, and then the rest of the year? Was it tough to get over?
It was weird, because we clawed so hard to get to that ranking, and once we started seeing that, everyone was like, wow, this Virginia team started to get noticed. We were racking up all these yards. The defense was shutting down people. I mean, we were putting up all these points, and we were just having a phenomenal season. And then when we were playing Georgia Tech, we had every bit of confidence that we were going to win that game, and we jumped out on them. And, I mean, we just really stepped on their throat. And in the second half, somehow defensively collapsed. And offensively, we started to stall. And we had some really tough plays in the second half that allowed them to kind of claw their way back, and then to lose on a game-winning field goal. And really to just kind of, we really lost that game because of just mistakes, just mental mistakes that were made. And from there, we never recovered. I think the all that emotion that it took to get there. Once we lost that momentum and we lost that feeling of being on top and what it took to get there and how everyone said we didn't deserve it, we struggled. We had Herman Moore, who got injured, I think, against the University of Maryland, our leading quarterback, and he was going to be out for a period of time and hopefully get him back for a bowl game. And ultimately, we just never regained that confidence or that swag that we had that elevated us to that level. And it was unfortunate because I really felt that although Georgia Tech went on to be co-champions, national champions with University of Colorado, that was really our opportunity, probably one of the greatest, if not, I don't know when the next time it may happen for Virginia to end up with a national championship.
And Herman, you mentioned unfortunate, and we've seen an unfortunate incident at the right outside the University of Virginia this year up there in Charlottesville. So, the recent protest and the counter protest and the violence that ensued took place, right outside there. And I know you've spoken on this, since it happened. But what do you think? What do you think about when you saw what went on, and what's your message been to people about what took place up there?
When I first learned about it, I was actually on the road and at another event, and I happened to see there's a very good close friend of mine that lives in Charlottesville that contacted me, and she was mentioning that there was this thing that was taking place in Charlottesville, and they knew that this was going to take place. They had something occur previously earlier in the summer with the protest and the march, and then to have it come back at the magnitude and all the national coverage that started to lead up to it. And then when it broke out in violence and unfortunately someone losing their life, this became it was already a serious situation, but it became even worse because of the tragedy, because of the division that was trying to be thrust upon Charlottesville, for people who are there, is a friendly place. It is a place where people get along. It's a place where people have really what we call that Southern hospitality. And to all of a sudden have it look like it was this battle zone that was taking place was shocking. For me, and I'm from there, and I know more about it, so I can't even imagine what the national perception was of Charlottesville. But I'm just glad to see that it's moving forward. But I know that it's going to be a while before all that community heals, and I don't know if it ever will, because we have uncovered the hate that's taking place in this country. We've uncovered really this underlying I don't know. It's just a mentality that just will not go away, and we just really need to realize there are some things that are far greater that are taking place. That means that we have to get along versus pulling each other apart, and that's the message that you get from the citizens of Charlottesville, and that's why you saw them come out and support and against it. And a lot of people may not even like that. There may even be some of the listeners who disagree with all the things that were taking place and all the siding with one or the other. But what we have to realize is that we're doing harm no matter what. And if we don't figure this thing out and figure out how do we get along, how do we put the past behind us and heal ourselves going forward.
Let's go on the opposite side on a happier, much happier note. Like I mentioned in your intro, Herman, you were inducted into the Virginia State Sports Hall of Fame. For all of us who will never know what that's like, what's it like being recognized at that level by your home state?
That was important to me. There's a College Football Hall of Fame. There's a National Football Hall of Fame, or the Canton Football Hall of Fame. But it's something special about the state, because when you're at home, you're amongst a lot of people who have come out of the same state that you've come out of, that have done some phenomenal things in their sport. It takes a lot to get to the apex and the pinnacle of your sport. It takes a lot of luck. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of help to get there. And when you are there and you get nominated in, that means someone paid attention. It means that people want to recognize you for those accomplishments. So I was humbled. I was very thankful for those, and it was even more special because even though I had a tough time with Bobby Ross, who was my coach with the Lions, and he and I didn't always see eye to eye, and there were some rough patches, he was one of the people who was instrumental in actually getting me nominated into the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, and I'm always thankful of him and also of all those that felt that I was deserving of that. And there's so many people that come out of our state that have done some phenomenal things.
So Herman, before we let you go, remind our listeners, how can they stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing, whether it's online or it's over social media?
Yep, if you want to check me out on social media, you can go to my Twitter account, which is at hman84. If you want to also check me out and see what I'm up to on my personal website, they can go to hermanmoore84.com. Again, that's hermanmoore84.com, and check me out there. And if they ever want to get in touch with me, I have a portal there for contact, and I always like to keep up with people. So I try and be on top of my social media, but sometimes, especially during the football season, it gets a little tough, which I should be doing a lot more. So I'm going to try and be a little bit more on top of that, but definitely there. And also you can find me on Facebook.
Well, Herman, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back on the show. You're always so fantastic. We hope you'll come back and do it again sometime. Love to catch up with you later on in the season, continue to get more of your stories and your insights.
Yep, absolutely. Anytime you guys want some insight on Detroit Lions too, just let me know, and we'll talk some Lions football or the NFC North.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Herman. Take care. All the best to you and your family.
Same to you both. Thank you for having me.
Take care, Herman.
All right. Take care, Herman. That is former Detroit Lions Pro Bowl wide receiver Herman Moore. A lot of great stuff there, Bob, and particularly not just talking about his past at the University of Virginia, his insights and his thoughts about what took place in Charlottesville, and then what a great wide receiver he was.
Oh, Chris, he, again, without sounding dramatic, probably had the best 3 consecutive seasons I've ever seen. Between 95 and 97, people forget because he played with some not-so-good teams. Detroit never got all the headlines, but caught, I think, 340 passes in 3 years, Chris. The numbers are astounding, but we'll talk to him more about that next time. But and a very, very intelligent man, as you could see, and we're honored to have him on the phone.
Yes, we are. All right, now back with us on the Kaiven Foods guest line to go through our 5-star picks of the week. It's former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins. Hey, Tony, how are you tonight, my friend?
Doing great. How you doing, Chris and Bob?
All right, Tony. So, Tony, before we get into our picks this week, I got to get your thoughts. You were right here on the show a week ago saying the Patriots were going 16-0. How you feeling a week later?
I meant to say 15-1.
Are you going to stick by that even? Are you thinking after what we saw last week they can run the table at this point?
I still think they can run the table, man. It was a tough start, man. We had a lot of guys. I didn't know we had so many guys missing on defense, so I think we'll put it together. I'm not worried.
All right, so let's get into our picks for this week. We'll review last week first. You and Bob, tough start, 3-2. Tony, you were correct on the Raiders and the Cowboys, wrong on the Patriots, Cardinals, and Seahawks. Bob had a correct pick with the Packers and the Cowboys, missed on the Pats, Cards, and Titans. And Bob, shame on you and me for ever picking the Cardinals. I think at this point you and I should have a moratorium. Never pick the Cardinals.
Down, way down.
Yeah. Oh. Yes, we're out on the Cardinals. I was 3-2, so I got a 1-game lead over you two as we go into week number 2. And our first game this week, Tony, we're going to stay right with your boys. Your 0-1 Patriots are going into the 0-1 Saints. The Patriots are a 7-point road favorite. The over/under is a whopping 56. And Tony, if the Chiefs can score 42 on your boys, the Saints might exceed the over/under themselves. So talk about how are your boys going to go about rebounding?
I think we're going to bounce back, man. With our coaching staff and Belichick knowing what we have to do, and I think Brady's going to play better. Gronk's going to play better. Defense has to play better. Got to stop the run. Watched New Orleans last week. Was not impressed with their whole scheme and with their offense. So I'm going to go with New England, of course. Maybe a little close. 31-24 New England.
All right. Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they totally bounce back, guys. They're going to get Gronkowski involved in this game more. That was a definite problem. And Belichick, being a defensive-minded coach, he's going to make just enough adjustments to get that defense at least average. And the Saints only scored 19 last week. I don't see them scoring too much more. I'll give them 21, but I'm going to give New England 31. So I'm going 31-21 New England.
All right. Well, guys, I'm trying to avoid the Week 1 overreaction, but let's go back to the Super Bowl where Tom Brady didn't look great for the first 3 quarters of that game. Then he looked superhuman in the fourth quarter. And when you look back to last week, 16 of 36, 267 yards, no touchdowns, nothing to write home about there. So I think this week is going to be very telling for Tom Brady going forward. And Tony, you talked about injuries. The loss of Edelman, and now, Amendola left last week's game with a concussion and a knee injury. So that's certainly impacting, the offense's performance. So I think this is going to be a tough one, and like I said, I'm trying to avoid the overreaction, but you know what? I'm going Saints in an upset. I think this is a high scoring game. I'm going to take the Saints 38-27, and then next week, Bob, you and I are going to be talking Tony off the ledge. So I look forward to seeing how that game plays out. All right, our second game, fellas, is the 1-0 Vikings going to my 1-0 Steelers. The Steelers are somehow a 6-point home favorite. That seems like a lot of points to me. The over/under is 45.5. Tony, who do you like here?
Man, I'm telling you, man, Minnesota played good football Monday night. Bradford played well. The defense, the defense always plays well. The rookie running back out of Florida State, I think he's going to be something special this year. Pittsburgh, they kind of scared me against the Browns last week, man. I'm thinking they're going to put up a lot of points. There wasn't a lot of points scored against Cleveland, so I'm going Minnesota. I'm going to go Minnesota. I know it's tough going into Pittsburgh and beating Pittsburgh at home, but I just think Minnesota's going to put it all together this year. They're going to have a great team. So, Minnesota 27 to 14.
Wow, only 14 points. Holy cow. Bob, what do you think?
It's a very interesting matchup, guys. Might be the game of the week as far as competitiveness or whatever. But Tony's right. The Cook is a running back. He's going to be the real deal if you watch that game, Week 1. But, Pittsburgh at home, guys, I think Bell goes off bigger this week. He had a very pedestrian game last week. He's going to go off. Antonio Brown had an incredible game. I think they kind of are just a better balanced team. And Roethlisberger is going to play an error-free game, and I can see the Steelers, it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to say the Steelers can win this game about 34-28.
All right. So, what I saw is a Steelers offense last week that looked out of sync, and I'm going to largely attribute that to Le'Veon Bell missing all of training camp in the preseason, and Martavis Bryant as well. And, their whole offense last week was, Roethlisberger to Antonio Brown. On the defensive side, I love what I saw from T.J. Watt. He reminded me a lot of Kevin Green, which we'll talk more about a little later on the show with Paul Alexander. What still scares me is the Steelers secondary, and it's going to get tested hard by Sam Bradford and Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, who had 157 yards last week. And I wasn't impressed by Joe Hayden. He looked like every other Steelers defensive back that they put out there. Had him 10 to 12 yards off the line of scrimmage. Underneath routes were there all day long. So they better fix that in a hurry, or Sam Bradford's going to pick them apart. But I'm going to stick with my boys, and I think they get a lot better offensively. I got the Steelers winning this one 31-24. We've got our next guest, Jewell, hanging on the line. We got a couple of more games to get through, fellas. Our third game this week is the 0-1 Titans going to the 1-0 Jaguars. The Titans are a 2-point road favorite. The over/under is 42. Tony, the Titans are a team that both Bob and I liked, to win this, win their division this year. So, so far, not so good. What do you think about how they look and who wins this game?
I like Jacksonville. I like Jacksonville's defense. I like the rookie running back, Fournette. I just think Jacksonville's got a really pretty good team this year. Tennessee wasn't too impressed with them last week. So I'm going with Jacksonville. Jacksonville, 27-24.
All right. Bob, what do you got?
Like you said, Chris, you and I are high on the team. I'm still pretty high on Tennessee. Tony's right. Fournette's good, and their defense is looking good. That was a great Week 1 for them. I just think the Titans just have too much all-around talent. A guy like DeMarco Murray was held in check. Henry also had a very, very pedestrian game at running back. I think they're going to get it together, and so they're going to go, and I think the Tennessee Titans can avoid going 0-2. They're going to win this game 28-20.
All right. Well, guys, to Tony's point, I drafted the Jaguars defense in our fantasy football league for a reason. Last week they had 10 sacks, 3 fumble recoveries. They returned one of those for a touchdown, also had an interception. They brought in Malik Jackson as a free agent. He had one of those 10 sacks. Calais Campbell had 4 sacks. So, their defense looks awfully good. Again, overreaction for week 1, but boy, what a week 1 they had. And Tony, to your point, Leonard Fournette rushed for 100 yards and a touchdown. Chris Ivory had 42 yards, averaged 4.7 yards per carry, and that's how you be successful in this league. Run the ball well, play great defense, and then don't ask Blake Bortles to win games for you. Just be efficient, and you're going to get a lot of wins. So I'm going with the Jags too. Even though I got the Titans winning this division, I may regret that later on, but I'm taking the Jags 20-17. Our fourth game this week is the 1-0 Cowboys going to the 1-0 Broncos. The Cowboys are a 2-point road favorite. The over-under is 42. Tony, who do you think comes out on top in this one?
I like the Cowboys. I think their defense played well. I don't know how good the Giants' offense is the last week, but I think Dallas' defense played pretty well. And you got the 2 young kids in the backfield again. So got to go with Dallas. I think Dallas is a better football team overall, and so we're gonna go Dallas. And I think Dallas is gonna go in there and put a whooping on Denver. Man, I just don't see Denver scoring a lot of points. So we're gonna go 31-10 Dallas.
31-10. There's the Tony Collins blowout special of the week. Bob, what do you think? Tony crazy?
No, I like Dallas too, and not too far off from what Tony said. Elliott, he just took off where he ended up last year, and I think Des Bryant, they're going to get him involved more. They really put the clamps in him last week, and they wanted to. Landon Collins and the rest of the guys from New York. But I think Dallas goes in there. They get everybody involved here. I think their defense is good. I don't see Simeon doing too much in this game, Chris. I'm going to go Dallas 30-20.
30-20. All right. Well, and I'm with all you guys. Now, I think the game's going to be a little bit closer, right? I'm going to give the Broncos defense some credit. They're pretty solid. They did a pretty good job last week against the Chargers. I like Dallas as well. I think Dallas goes into Mile High, comes out with a win, but I'm going to say it's 23-20 in a closer matchup. Our last game this week is the 1-0 Packers coming here to Atlanta to the 1-0 Falcons. The Falcons are a 3-point home favorite. The over-under is 54. Tony, this is a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game, and as Bob and I were talking at the top of the show, could very easily see these two teams right back in the NFC Championship game again this year. It's going to be the Falcons' home opener in their new stadium. So do Falcons fans go home happy or sad on Sunday, Tony?
I think they're gonna go home happy, man. It's gonna be a tough ball game. Green Bay is a good football team. Of course, as long as you got Aaron Rodgers in the backfield, you're gonna be fine. So, but I just think Atlanta's playing at home. I just think they'll have that advantage right now. Their defense is playing pretty well, and so I'm gonna go with Atlanta. It's gonna be a real close one though. I'm gonna go with Atlanta, 17-14.
Wow, low-scoring, close game. Bob, what do you think?
This one's a tough one to pick. This would be my flip the coin game of the week. I mean, Rodgers, Ryan, both over 300 last week. Montgomery taking over the rushing duties in Green Bay. He's still got to prove himself to me, but they still have a lot of weapons there. Again, this could. I'm going to flip the coin, guys. Here we go. Hold on a minute. Tails, Green Bay. So I'm going to go Green Bay, and some points will be scored. How about 35-24?
Wow. Okay. Well, guys, when I look at this game, certainly when you look at, everything that Atlanta's got going for itself, right? They blew out the Packers last year in that NFC Championship game, 44-21. They're at home. It's a new stadium, so home opener, new stadium, all that going in their favor. The crowd's going to be going crazy. But you know what? I think 65,000 Falcon fans go home disappointed on Sunday. I'm taking the Packers in a close one, a high-scoring close one, 37-34. Tony, before we let you go, remind our listeners about the great things you're doing helping kids go off to college.
TonyCollinsFoundation.com, TonyCollinsSpeaks.com. Go to the website, make a donation. We're helping kids go off to college on scholarships.
There you go. Tony, good luck this week. We look forward to catching up with you again next week.
All right, guys, you have a good one.
You too.
Right.
Thank you.
All the best to you and your family, Tony. Take care. That's former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins, and our 5-star picks of the week. We've got our next guest, Ann Jewell, hanging on the line. We'll get to Ann on the other side of this quick station break.
You're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari, where NFL legends live on. Back to you, boys.
It's him. He's alive.
And now back and making her 6th appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is our wonderful friend and Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory Executive Director, Ann Jewell. Ann has been a wonderful friend of the show over the years, and we continue to be honored to have Ann and the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory as one of our partners. You hear us bragging about the museum and what they're doing in the Bat Vault every week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. They've got some great new exhibits and offers going on now through October. Check them out online at sluggermuseum.com, and we're honored that Ann is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Ann, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Ann.
It's great to be here 6 times. Is this the 6th time, or is this the 7th time?
This is 6. This makes number 6.
Wow, all right.
I know.
I love it.
I know. So, Ann, first of all, congratulations. You were telling me, before the show that you've got a record-setting summer so far at the museum. Very exciting news. Good for you guys. Talk about what's going on.
Thank you so much. Yes, we are catching our breath. This is our 21st year of being open in this location. We've been giving factory tours through the Louisville Slugger Bat Factory since at least the 1940s or so. But when we opened this location with the big bat out front 21 years ago, we had no idea. We were approaching 5 million guests over this time period. And this past July, after 21 years, we are still growing. July was a record-setting, our best month in our history, and it really has been an amazing year so far with what's going on, and we're really excited about it. We want to keep the momentum going. We're planning some renovations at our place, and I know how much you guys love the Bat Vault. You will be so happy to hear that, yes, the Bat Vault is definitely going to get a significant facelift, a bigger footprint. We're going to be doing more activities in a new and improved Bat Vault once these renovations are done. So you're going to have to come back for that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's, of all the great things, and there's so many great things about the museum. The Bat Vault is by far, my favorite piece. And, I had the opportunity to be in there and, hold a bat for my hero, Willie Stargell. Got to see his contract that he signed with you guys, way back when. $100 was the contract, Bob, that they paid Willie Stargell to use Louisville Slugger bats. So that was certainly one of the highlights of the trip. And you've got some other great things going on associated with Louisville native Muhammad Ali plus Hank Aaron called Ali and Aaron United in the Fight. There's a fantastic mural of the two of them in the context of the civil rights movement. Talk about what you have going on with those two guys.
We were so honored to be asked to take part in a special celebration for Muhammad Ali. You probably remember the amazing display of emotion and love that poured out from around the world when Ali passed away. And we had the ceremony in Louisville that was covered, as he traveled through Louisville. And a year later, after that, the Ali Center wanted to do something special, so they came up with this celebration that focused on the different principles that he really celebrated in his life, and they asked different attractions and really the entire community to try to get involved somehow, and to maybe do something special that would just really highlight something, one of his principles in his life. And as we looked into it, this great opportunity, and we thought, well, how do we tie this into baseball? And he was a big baseball fan. And it would have been easy for us to sort of do a photo, exhibit of Muhammad Ali at baseball games and with baseball players and so on. And that would have been fine. But we really, really felt that this was a great time to do something extra special, especially for the life that he lived and what he believed in. And so as we dug around, we found this terrific quote that he said about Hank Aaron. And so Muhammad Ali said about Hank Aaron, he's the only man I idolize more than myself. And isn't that great? Yeah. So
it's great.
So that got our attention. And as we looked further into it, part of that really had to do with Aaron's role as a hero, in his march toward breaking Babe Ruth's record and the terrible racism and racist hatred that he faced as he approached that home run record. But the way that he handled it, the perseverance that he showed, and the grace and the strength and so on, was such an inspiration to so many people. So that's kind of where this exhibit took off. And so we've got these two, great athletes who certainly accomplished amazing things on the field and were cheered for by people of all races. But despite all that, right, they faced great obstacles and racism off the field in their personal lives and so on. And they had such different styles. That's part of the message too. You've got the flamboyant and the kind of, outrageous almost Muhammad Ali, just loving that limelight. And then you've got the sort of quiet, more reserved approach of Hank Aaron, and the notion of staying true to yourself, no matter what you're confronting, and the inspiration that they provided for all of us. And so we took that. It's this giant mural. It's like 10 feet tall and almost 40 feet long. And we had this wonderful artist, Victor Sweat. And by the way, anyone, you can check this out. There's photos of it on our website and so on. But Victor Sweat, our local artist, took this idea and put these two icons in these great poses, in the field, and then kind of in the context of the civil rights movement and sort of a history timeline in a very emotional way, where they're sprinkled in with other leaders and moments of civil rights, so that you're kind of walking through this, and to the point where, okay, yes, we've come this far, but there's still so much to do. Today we had to bring it through to present day. That was important to us. And one of the most really my favorite parts even of this whole experience, we really wanted it to be interactive. And so we asked people, part of the mural includes these questions. What beliefs do you go to bat for? And what freedoms do you fight for? And people have been leaving their answers to those questions on the walls in the room,
wow,
in the gallery. And thousands. I mean, it's just plastered. We've provided sticky notes and things to write with, and people have just really gone above and beyond in terms of participating in this. And it's all ages. You can tell when you look at the writing. There's children doing it, on up through adults. The notes, the messages that they leave are very moving. It's really just made for an amazing, memorable experience, and one that we hope people will take with them when they leave, that they will remain inspired, and think back to this. And the show is going to be up. The original date was through October 8th, but it has been there's been such a wonderful reaction to it that we are trying to find some ways to maybe keep it up longer. And something else that we had planned in that room, we might try to stage somewhere else just so we can keep this up.
And speaking of the things that those two gentlemen faced with the civil rights issues, you got a taste. I was reading an article. You got a taste of some of that. What they had to go through and what the African American players had to deal with when Frank Robinson was selected as one of your living legends back in 2008. Do you mind sharing that story?
Oh my gosh. Okay. No, I don't mind sharing it. But I do get, it does go right through me. So, right. Frank Robinson, we do this Living Legend Award every year. And, Frank Robinson was one of our early recipients. I think he was our second or third recipient. And The day that he was set for the ceremony, I received on my phone a horrific message from a coward, with just loaded with just racial attacks against me, against Frank Robinson, the fact that we picked him and how could we do that, and just, you can imagine the language and the words, and that this person wanted me to die personally because we were, selecting African Americans for this award, although he certainly didn't use that word over and over and over again. And I just, I heard the message not long before the ceremony was to get started. And I had never imagined, what that could feel like, to have that kind of hatred just thrown at you. And I mean, the sound of his voice, everything about it. So it really shook me up. And I was even embarrassed at how much it impacted me, because I thought, holy cow, these guys lived with this over and over and over again, and their families and everything else. And how did they do that? I mean, I get this one call and I'm a wreck, and they put up with this time and time again for years. And so, when I went to talk to our security head about it and some other folks, and I just kind of broke down, and they listened to it and so on too. And we decided that we needed to let Mr. Robinson know, that this had happened, and give him the option of not coming, because we really didn't know, there were death threats in there. The death threats were directed at me, but, still, it was all based in this racism. And, so we didn't know, if there was a danger or not. And so the message was relayed to Mr. Robinson, and, I was so moved that his response was that he was sorry that I had to experience that. And of course he would absolutely be there. See you soon, kind of thing. And I get a little choked up even still talking about it, because he to this day, just the example that he showed there of the way that he reacted to that, and for him to express concern for me, just, still kind of takes my breath away, honestly. So that is the story of what you're referring to there.
Yes. Unbelievably terrible story. And it was, I guess, maybe a little naive on my part to think that, people, it just really was one of those moments where, oh my gosh, people like this really do exist. And this would have been, almost 8 years ago, I guess, probably 7-8 years ago at this point. Yeah. Yeah.
But I appreciate your asking. Thank you. I appreciate that you would ask that and let me tell that story.
Bob, questions for Ann?
And I've always been impressed by the eclectic nature of this entire museum, and just by saying that, it kind of tells me that you have the type of job that it's not the same thing happening every day, but as far as normal as you can get, what would a typical day of Ann Jewell be going to the office? Tell me how that would be like. The most typical it can be. Tell me what that might be like.
Let's see. So I would say when I arrive in the morning, I'm always just kind of, as I'm walking to my office, I'm sort of checking down into the museum, because there's a balcony up above our museum. So as I walk through, I can kind of just look down and see, give it a once over, how are things looking and so on, and really start thinking about, what's going to be happening that day, special event wise or anything else. Certainly, checking in on probably working on some press releases for any events or things that might be coming up. Meeting with my team, coming up, planning for future exhibits or anything that might be unfolding that particular day. working with any camera crews that might be coming by. Maybe they've given us a heads up and maybe they haven't. Maybe they've just dropped in from, PBS, dropped in the other day, which was great. And, just kind of lots of teamwork going on at our place. I mean, I meet with, in my position, I'm working with our retail director to talk about what kind of products we've got in the store and, how can I help him get whatever he needs to be a success there, walking through the factory, maybe kind of listening in on our tours. And we have, especially during the summer, lots of new tour guides. So just kind of contributing to any, training feedback that might be going on with our guides, make sure that we're giving the best tours we can through the factory. And, gosh, as the day goes on, there might be even someone else famous might drop in and need a special VIP tour. So it's really a lot of planning, whether it's budgeting or ideas for future exhibits, and then just kind of being ready to go with the flow, for anything that might come up.
And what's blown our minds, and as far as Chris and I, we've always been impressed by the fact that you can go into that museum store and get your name on a Louisville Slugger bat. Chris has given them out to our Hall of Fame recipients. I have one here. It's just awesome. I'm thinking of kids that go in there that can have their name put on a bat. I think of me going to a Yankee game in around 1970 at Bat Day and just having an Elston Howard bat, and that was the greatest thing ever. But for a kid to get their own name on their bat, that must be priceless.
It sure is. And that's, as far as a typical day, that's probably my favorite part of just about any day is when I have the chance to see a kid or an adult turn into a kid when they see their name on one of our bats. It is such a delight to see that reaction. And now, even since the time that you guys would have visited, we have so many more colors, the sort of the technology, the ability to do things with the bats, color-wise and graphics-wise. There are so many options to choose from. Certainly the most popular are right now still are the traditional natural color and the black bats. But there's such a variety now. It's a lot of fun to let people kind of get, make their own statement with different colors and messaging and so on the bats.
And one more before we let you go, and something I bet most people don't have an awareness of is Louisville Slugger owns bionic gloves. And they make gloves, golf gloves, work gloves, fitness gloves, and a new glove that Marshawn Lynch uses called Beast Mode gloves. And you've got an amazing event coming up with a Navy veteran. Do you mind telling that story?
Oh, I'd love to tell you about this. So, yes, his name is Rodney Hahn, and he is 56 years old, a Navy veteran. And Rodney uses our bionic gloves. He's one of our athletes. He's a physical trainer now these days. Rodney set a record for the most number of pull-ups in a 24-hour period. And so most of your listeners probably know, but if you think of a chin-up, a pull-up is a lot like a chin-up, but your hands are turned the other way. They're over sort of over the top of the bar. And so in his first attempt, when he set a record about a year, maybe a year and a half ago or so, he did over 6,800 pull-ups, 6,800 pull-ups in 24 hours. Can you imagine?
That's crazy. No.
So that record was broken by someone who did 7,600. So now Rodney wants to try to break, set another record, break the one that broke his. And I think, he's 56 years old now. I think he was 54 when he set the other record. So we said, and he just called and said, hey, I'm doing this. I love your gloves. They've made a big difference in my training. Would you mind, could I get some extra pairs? And we said, well, why don't you just come here and do it? We'd love to stage something like this in the museum. So he is going to be in our museum in the main gallery, front and center. We're setting up some pull-up bars, and this is going to be September 30th. And I will let you guys know we are looking into doing a live stream of this event.
Wow.
And if we do that, I'll let you know, and maybe, you can share that if you want to, if anybody wants to check it out while he's going at this. But he's going to start at 11 a.m. on Saturday, September 30th, and he's shooting for 8,000 pull-ups in 24 hours. But if he just gets past the 7,600, then he'll break that record. And I just can't even imagine what's all going to unfold here, but it'll be a lot of fun and very inspiring. I think he is, for sure.
Absolutely is. So, Ann, we can't thank you enough for your continued partnership and being a part of the show. I got 3 pages worth of questions I want to get through to you, and unfortunately just don't have enough time. Bob and we hope you'll come back again real soon, share more of your stories, more of your insights, and then update us on the great things you guys are doing, because it's so great. The museum's fantastic. We can't say it often enough how much we enjoyed being there and being a part of it, and having you guys as part of the show as one of our partners. You guys are so great.
Oh, thank you. We feel the same way about you, and I always, our team and myself, we all look forward to chatting with you guys. So we've got plenty more to tell you about. I know I told some long stories tonight, so thanks for the time, and it's always a blast to chat with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Ann. We look forward to catching up with you soon. In between now and then, all the best to you and your family and everyone there at the museum. Thanks for your time tonight.
Good night.
Take care.
Take care. That is Ann Jewell, and she is the executive director of the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, and a fantastic person on top of all of that. And Bob, and I'm sure you've looked online at the exhibits they have going on. They've got a Lego one on display as well for some of the stadiums from around Major League Baseball, which is unbelievable. So much going on there. Hopefully we get Ann back on the show real soon. But that story about Frank Robinson is unbelievably disturbing. I couldn't believe it when I read it.
Yeah, it is incredibly disturbing, a sign of the times, Chris, but how it can make itself down to a place like that where there's a slice of Americana at that place, it's pretty disturbing. But Ann is the perfect person in that job. Chris does a great job promoting everything going on, and there are always things going on there. We just love talking to her, and that is such a cool place, man. We got to get down there.
Absolutely. And again, check it out online, sluggermuseum.com. All right, now back with us and making his 14th appearance on the Kyvan Foods guest line, and a member of our 2016 Hall of Fame class is Paul Alexander. Paul is one of the best sports anchors on TV or radio anywhere in the country. He can be heard doing the pre- and post-game shows for the Pirates and the Penguins for Root Sports Pittsburgh. He also covers the Steelers. He's been a true blessing to us over the last few years, sharing his stories and his insights with us. We always have a lot of fun every time Paul joins us, and we're excited that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Paul, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Paul.
Gentlemen, my pleasure. How's everything? It's fall. There's a little chill in the air. There's footballs flying all around, and life is getting a little better. This is my favorite time of the year.
Indeed. I think Bob and I would both agree with that statement. And in that vein, Paul, I want to start by getting your thoughts on the Steelers and the win over the Browns. It felt pretty uninspiring to me, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Do you think that was just a result of Le'Veon Bell and Martavis Bryant not being, around for training camp and most of the preseason, so that sort of, got the offense out of sync, or was it something else we should be a little more concerned about?
Now, I'm not referring to a boy band here, so please don't misunderstand. But how do you get in sync when you play a quarter of football together throughout the entire preseason? And right. That's minus Le'Veon Bell. The preseason in the NFL has to really be examined. We've seen now what the CFL is doing. They're not even going to practice in pads anymore because of all of the concerns over concussions, which are so well founded. But if you really take a look at how many plays the varsity plays during the 4 preseason games, it's about a quarter and a half. So when you're not really doing anything live, ones against ones or even ones against twos during practice, you're not hitting, you can't afford to get anyone hurt during practice. I don't know how you develop any continuity, any real execution or any kind of rhythm whatsoever in an NFL preseason. I mean, really, it's a shame you don't have, what we see in college football where you line up a couple of teams that, you can basically handle without much of an effort to kind of tune yourself up and go from there, because this NFL preseason is a joke. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And by the way, the NFL charges you as a season ticket holder full price for those games. It's a crime.
That's right. That's right.
So I guess I didn't really answer the question. I don't think we've seen, other than an offense trying to kind of find itself, the reinsertion of Martavis Bryant, a couple of new faces in terms of Juju, Lulu, let's go get it done. There's some different faces, some different parts, and you had an entire preseason camp ignored by your best running back. So I think we'll see a much different offense Sunday against Minnesota.
And Paul, we Steeler fans, we tend to have dramatic overreactions on both sides of the coin, both positive and negative, right? So temper me here with respect to TJ Watt's play last weekend for at least one game. And again, I know it was against a very young Browns team. I saw a guy with a high motor who reminded me of Kevin Green. Right. So we saw more things to get, I think, excited about what we saw from TJ Watt in one game than we saw in 4 years of Jarvis Jones. So what are your thoughts, TJ Watt?
Well, he had more impact in one game than Jarvis Jones had in 3 years. That is a simple fact. 2 sacks and an interception, and that interception, by the way, an extremely athletic play. Maybe he's not quite as good as his brother, but wow. As far as a rookie first-round pick making his debut, it doesn't get a whole lot better than what we saw. Now, like everyone has to do in this world in which we live, is what have you done for me lately? You have to be a consistent performer. Getting Mr. Dupree in there is going to be a big help. I think that everybody is wondering where he is and where he stands. I think we'll find out on Sunday. I think there's a good chance we're going to see him in the lineup. I really think this defense might be the key to this entire season. This team's going to score points. Granted, health is always going to be a factor in any NFL season, but it's going to be a matter of this defense matching up whomever's going to be between them in the AFC and the Super Bowl. The Steelers right now, according to ESPN, number 1 in the power rating. Not that I buy much into that after week 1, but Chris, like we like to do when you're a Steeler fan, when something's very positive, you jump on it, you talk about how great it is. If your team isn't listed in the power rankings, you talk about how insignificant it is at this time of the year. That's the way we play, right, as fans.
That's right. And Paul, Jesse James is a fellow Penn State alumni, with you. He sure seemed like a guy on the rise at the end of last season, but it seemed like, Tomlin and Colbert weren't very high on him during training camp, especially because they went out and traded for Vance McDonald from San Francisco. But he goes out, he scores 2 touchdowns against Cleveland. He's targeted 8 times, has 6 catches for 41 yards. Can he be the guy at tight end?
Well, I think that Mike Tomlin lit a fire. A real good friend of mine, and I went back to State College for the Penn State game, and and one of my good friend's daughter, and he was telling me just how Mike Tomlin had made the comment that no one in the.
I think we're losing your signal, Paul.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, we're losing Paul, and we're losing his signal. Paul, you still with us? Yeah, I think we've lost him, Bob. Hopefully we get Paul back. Is that you, Paul? Are you back with us?
Nope.
No. So hopefully Paul gets his signal back and he's able to come back on the show. But that's one of the things, Bob. Jesse James. In our Thursday night tailgate fantasy football league, our good friend Angelo Kane. He got Jesse James in the draft, and Yahoo likes to come back and give you some feedback, right, on how well your draft went or not, and they said he had the worst tight ends in the league, and then on the upside, Jesse James goes out and gives you a couple of touchdowns, right there in week 1. And, the Steelers have sort of been looking for the next tight end right after, Heath Miller. We had so many great years of Heath Miller. And then when he retired, so now, who's the next guy up? And, Jesse James, guy's 6'7", Bob. So, he's certainly got, the height that you would love, especially in the red zone or when you need a couple of tough yards, a guy that can out jump the rest of the players and get you that first down. Jesse James certainly seems like that guy. We've got Paul back on the line with us. So, Paul, we were talking about Jesse James, getting your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I apologize. I got to a little higher ground, actually, on the move here at the moment. But, yeah, I don't know how much did you catch that I was at the Penn State game and one of my good friend's daughters actually dates Jesse James, and he was really
how about
upset
that?
by the fact that they really he just felt horrible the way that they went out and added McDonald. They made the trade. Mike Tomlin had made the comment post trade that the tight ends during the entirety of camp look more like a junior varsity squad than the varsity. So he lit a fire. Sometimes as a coach, you don't always have to pat a guy in the back. Sometimes you got to give him a little kick in the butt. And I'm not sure if Jesse James needed that, but he certainly acquitted himself quite well. I think Vance McDonald's going to have trouble getting himself on the field. Jesse James is not going to make it easy for him to get opportunity. And the one thing about the Steelers that I love, there's no ego from the general manager or the coach that, hey, we traded for this guy, we're paying this guy, we have to get him in there. The best players are going to play. Now, they're going to give draft picks, that are taken early an opportunity to prove themselves. But just because they traded for Vance McDonald does not mean that he gets the opportunity, that he gets anointed the position. And Mike Tomlin made that very clear. And I think by what we saw transpire, the opportunity that James got, he's going to be tough to move out of that position.
Bob, questions for Paul?
And Paul, you mentioned talking about health. When you think of the Steelers and health, only one word comes to my mind. It's always been Big Ben, Roethlisberger. His snaps were limited in the preseason, Paul, because of an ankle. It just goes with the territory. The guy is never healthy, probably as healthy as he is ever going to be in week 1 with a little bit of a tender ankle. But you know how it works in there. I'm just wondering, what's your opinion, Paul, of the offensive line, and hopefully they can hold up enough to limit his hits. As you know, though, Ben will not stay healthy, but will still play the entire season.
Yeah, and he, I want to put this as politely as I can. He loves to point out that he never uses injuries as an excuse, and then he'll point out, how many things hurt and how it's hilarious. But as you point, he's a gamer. He is not going to let injuries slow him down. The beauty of Ben has been over the last 3 years, after being one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL, for the majority of the first 7 years of his career, those numbers have tailed off considerably. The offensive line right now, second in salary and in the entire NFL. And I think the Steelers are getting what they're paying for. There's great continuity there now. There's nothing like an offensive line. If you want to talk about teams having success, when the offensive line stays healthy for an entirety of a season, you're going to have great success. You're going to have great continuity, and you're going to have just tremendous production from your offense. This is a very good offensive line. And, right now, even though Le'Veon Bell and the running game did not find its groove, they went 5 wides. They went empty quite a bit. So I think we're going to see a much different offense on Sunday against Minnesota. I think Le'Veon Bell's going to get opportunity, and I think that you're going to see a whole lot of fun. This team should average 30 to 35 points per game. And if the defense is even a little better than, projected, this team really does have an opportunity to be the class of the AFC.
I know this is a football show, Paul, but the last time you and I spoke, we brought up the idea of a little bit of hockey talk. And at the time, we were talking about the Penguins, Paul, and how they were banged up on defense. And you and I thought that would be limited their ride in the playoffs. And what happened since we talked, Paul, until they were gone out and won another Stanley Cup? And what do you see for this year coming?
Well, it's been a really long time. Detroit in '97 was the last NHL team to repeat as a Stanley Cup champion. We have to go all the way back to the Islanders in the late '70s to get a three-peat. And I think this team, now with a healthy Chris Letang, knock on something that it stays that way. That's a guy that's really had trouble staying. I mean, the poor guy had a stroke at a very, young age, for heaven's sake. So the fact that he's still with us and still attempting they are young, they are talented, and most importantly, they have a captain and a leader that only wakes up and gets out of bed to be a better and more complete hockey player. That's every single day. And my good friend and the late, great Joe Paterno used to say, when your best players are your hardest working players, you win championships. And that's true in any organization. You look at any corporation, you look at any business. When your best and most important employees do things right and work the hardest, you're going to have tremendous success, because that brings up the less talented, that brings up the people that might be goofing off instead of doing the job the way they should. When they see the best and most talented working the hardest and doing things right, everybody falls into line. Michael Jordan comes to mind. Sidney Crosby at the top of that list right now. When you have players that may put up a lot of points, may do some of the flashy things well, but they don't work hard. They don't live right. That they don't really play as a good teammate, that they don't really care about anything other than their own satisfaction and glory. Well, you know what happens then? Coaches, general managers get fired, and teams lose a ton of games that they should win. So the fact that Sidney Crosby still wants another championship and is still hungry, is still the most talented and best player in the league, I love their chances for at least giving it, the old college try to go ahead and win another cup. I mean, who knows? The regular season in hockey, I certainly don't want to say it's meaningless, but I think true hockey fans know it's not until that postseason begins that we know or even have a clue how everything's going to go down and how things are going to transpire. The beauty of the NHL, that number 8 seed in any side of the ledger has a real good chance of knocking off number 1. It's not just going through the motions like in so many other sports. They have a legitimate chance to get a hot goaltender, get on some sort of roll, and go deep into the playoffs and maybe win it all. So it's a dangerous shootout. It's a dangerous perspective. But I'm telling you, I love Coach Sullivan. I love Sidney Crosby. I love the pipeline from Wilkes-Barre Scranton, their highest rated minor league squad. That trip between Wilkes-Barre Scranton and Pittsburgh, there has been a lot of successful guys that have done it the right way in the minors and have come up and been huge contributors at the major, at the National Hockey League level. It's an exciting thing. I mean, people actually are counting down, for hockey season to begin here, which, growing up and playing hockey in this town, we were like in a cult. There was not a lot of hope for us growing up that we had a chance to make it in the NHL, or that the people actually that were born in America had a chance to make it in the NHL. It was a Canadian sport that the Russians were pretty good at as well. Now, it doesn't matter where you grow up. There's a good chance that if you work hard enough, you can make it all the way to the NHL. And there's a lot of Pittsburgh born and bred guys in the NHL now that makes all of us that grew up, kind of pioneering the way, very proud of the fact that this has become one heck of a hockey town.
Paul, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing, whether it's online or it's on social media. P. Alexander 44, that's my Twitter handle.
We now, by the way, are no longer Root Sports. We're AT&T Sportsnet. Nothing's changed other than the name. What happened was AT&T bought DirecTV, which owned Root Sports. So they figured they paid for it. They wanted to put their name on it. Can't blame them.
Yeah. All right.
But
AT&T Sportsnet.
Same old thing. And one other thing I like to say, other than the fact how much it's an honor and a privilege to be with you guys, my good friend Kent DeCalvi has made the announcement that after this baseball season comes to a close, he's already hanged up the cleats a good while ago. He's going to hang up the microphone as well, and he's just going to enjoy the rest of what he has with his grandkids and his family. And he's going to be missed. he's still going to be around. He's still going to do a lot of the fantasy baseball things, and he'll be at a lot of Pirate functions because he loves being Teak. But as far as being our pre- and post-game analyst on AT&T Sportsnet, this is going to be his final hurrah. And it's just been an honor and a privilege to share a desk with him and work side by side along with one of the all-time great relievers and one of the true heroes here in Pittsburgh. So I just want to make sure I gave Teak a proper shout-out.
There you go. And I tell you, the pictures that you post of the two of you together, it looks like that's been a dream gig for you, and getting to spend time with a guy who's a legend, right, in Pirates history, right alongside you for the years that you guys were together. What a great gig that had to be.
Yeah, it's been a real privilege to be alongside that guy. He loves being Teak. There's no one better at it. And I'm just going to miss that opportunity and that camaraderie because he is just a true pleasure to be around.
Well, Paul, thank you. Speaking of pleasures to be around, thank you for being a part of the show tonight. And as often as you have been, it's always a great thrill for Bob and I to get to spend some time with you and have you here to share your thoughts and your insights with us. Hopefully you'll come back again later on in the season and share more of them because it's always a blast having you as part of the show.
Well, Chris, thank you. And Bob, thank you. Anytime. I'm a phone call away. Whenever you need me, I'm here.
Thank you, Paul. Much. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
See you, Paul. That is Paul Alexander, and a finer individual you will not find anywhere. So our thanks to Paul for his time and 14 times on the show. So what a great friend and a great TNT Hall of Famer. And we look forward to catching up again with Paul real soon. All right, we've got our next guest, John Luke, hanging on the line. We're going to get to John on this quick station ID.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcons tight end, and you're listening to TNT Thursday Night Tailgate. Brace yourself for the explosion.
And now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is John Luke. You know John as an auctioneer from A&E show Storage Wars. He's from North Harlem, New York. He's a big Jets, Yankees, Rangers, and Knicks fan. I think every once in a while he might sprinkle in a little Giants too. He's traveled all over the country doing auctions for charities, big companies, estates, and like I say, Storage Wars as well. He's met a lot of celebrities, athletes, executives along the way. We had a great time the last time he joined us here on the show, and we are honored that he has taken time to come back on the show with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, John, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back and being a part of the show.
Welcome back.
Hi, guys, and I have to tell you, I'm honored and privileged that you guys asked me to come back. I love your show. I've been listening to it, and very interesting. Great stories.
Thank you, John. So, John, I wanted to start our time with you tonight by getting your thoughts on your Jets. It looks like this is going to be a lost season based on, the turnover of the roster. But how are you feeling about the direction your Jets are going in?
What's the next question?
Not so much, huh?
Well, when management basically wants to lose because, we want to get the number one pick and that's their goal. We fans, what do we have to look forward to? The Giants game. I hate to say it. It's very depressing. And I know you had my buddy on, Victor Green, ex-New York Jet. I didn't listen to what he had to say, but I don't know. I don't see anything positive other than giving some kids some experience. I did watch the first game, and I'll give them probably a B+A because they have heart. At least they didn't fold their tent. It was a game. Not that I expected them to win. I hope they would win, but, I don't have too much positivity on this season.
Yeah, I think the curious thing about what they're doing this year is the fact that they've gone with Josh McCown at quarterback. I mean, you still got Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg on the roster, right? You would think one of those guys, right? Pick one, right? One of those young guys. Let's see what they got in either one of them. But it seems like they're not happy with either one of them, and neither one of them is in their long-term plan. So I don't know, to your point, John, if they're tanking this season to get the number one pick, is quarterback what you're hoping to get because you decided that neither one of these two guys is going to be the man?
I think that's the route they're going. I can't understand why they have Josh McCown as a quarterback, a 38-year-old quarterback. Not that he's bad, but what are you doing? You have two young guys. I know one, I believe one is hurt, but give them a chance. Give them a chance.
Right.
It's just, it's baffling. I can't even explain it. Baffling and frustrating as a fan.
John, it's great to speak with you again. And a guy that grew up in New York like yourself, and reading a little bit about your bio, you played all the different sports. And when you're talking about baseball, soccer, and hockey, roller hockey, etc., streets of Manhattan, what was that like, John? It's not the easiest thing when you're in a climate like we are here in the Northeast.
Well, growing up in New York, I had to play every sport. And, we had roller hockey in the winter. Then we had ice skating in the winter for ice hockey. We had all the sports. Growing up in New York was, I couldn't beat it. You had all the seasons, and I got to play all the sports.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I know you had your mom and dad. Your mom was a high school principal, I believe, and your father was in the service. Pretty disciplined upbringing, John.
You might say that.
Slightly.
Well, the biggest threat growing up was, if you don't behave yourself, I'm sending you to military school. So I pretty much behaved myself, because back then military school was not something you wanted to do.
So John, as you alluded to a moment ago, right? When you're looking at your Jets and that things aren't going really well, is it acceptable to go over and start to root for the Giants, or is that a New York no? You're either a Jet or you're a Giant fan. You can't be both.
I can't say that, because where I grew up, which was on 155th Street, I used to walk across the bridge to Yankee Stadium where the Giants played. I know no football team in New York plays in New York anymore except for the Buffalo Bills, but I used to watch the Giants. Walk over there as a kid. My parents used to take me. So I actually was a Giants fan and a Jets fan. But if the Giants are playing the Jets, I'm a Jets fan. But, I do root for the Giants.
So, John, looking back over the years, talk about what are some of your fondest memories from, Jets games, either ones you watched on TV or you made your way over to the stadium. What are some of the things that you can still look back on and smile about when watching your boys?
Well, watching Joe Namath win the Super Bowl, of course, that goes with, a precedent. I remember going to Jet games at Shea Stadium and just freezing. The wind would whip, and literally we'd have to put cardboard on the concrete and newspaper in our shoes because it was so cold. So,
wow.
Yeah, wow is right. But it was a lot of fun going to the games. It really was. But I gave up my tickets when they moved to Giant Stadium. They didn't do too good for season ticket holders. I went from the 40-yard line, mid-level, to behind the end zone up. So I said, no, thank you.
Wow.
With seat licensing, right, John?
Yeah, right.
I wasn't a happy camper, to say the least.
No.
You mentioned Victor Green. Who are some of the former players that you've had, or even the current players that you've had an opportunity to sit down and talk with?
Wow. For the Jets, Greg Buttle, I met Mark Gastineau because I did the Joe Namath event, his charity event, 2 years ago. So I actually got to meet Joe Namath too. But he has 110 Hall of Fame athletes there. And then Victor Green's event is actually coming up next week. And he has a lot of former New York Jets and other former star players. So there's so many to name. I was down. I had the privilege and the honor of doing a couple of events down for Super Bowl in Houston. I did an event called Laughs with Legends. I met Warren Moon because it was honoring Warren Moon. And you had Larry Centers, Andre Reed, John Randall, and Bubby Brister there, and then we're doing it again, I believe, next month. That's the best thing about what's happened doing the television show. It's like a fantasy for me because I get to meet all the stars that I grew up with in most of the sports. And sadly enough, I became a friend of Meadowlark Lemon, and sadly he passed away. So, that was pretty hard because he was a great guy.
Bob, more for John?
And that was my next question about Meadowlark. I was fascinated that you became incredibly close friends, John. From having watched the Globetrotters, I probably saw them live a dozen times over the years. I think he went to his grave, people thought he was kind of a clown prince and everything like that. But if you get to know the guy, he was a minister and probably one of the most incredible ambassadors, not just for basketball, but throughout the globe. One of the great human beings to ever walk this earth, and I'm not being too dramatic.
No, you're not. He had a heart of gold, totally. And I had the pleasure of meeting and speaking with his wife, and she told me some incredible stories. That he one story was he was doing an event down in North Carolina, which is where he is from, and he gave basketballs to 50 people, and there was a 51st kid that he didn't have a basketball to give. He drove an hour and a half to the nearest store that he could get a basketball and drove back to give it to the child because he didn't want him to be the only one without a basketball. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Wow.
So refreshing. And that's another thing about yourself, John, incredibly charitable. You donate your services to auctions, et cetera, especially these days. We have so many causes out there. When did you really get into the charitable stuff, John? And I'm sure it probably originated from your childhood.
Well, I'm blessed to have a skill that can be used to raise money for charities. I've been doing them for years. And in fact, my job is so interesting. Tuesday, I did an event in New York for a breast cancer event. And it was Fashion Week in New York. So the theme of the event was, runway models, fashion. And then I got up on stage and I sold 5 dresses for charity, which was unbelievable. And the week before that, I did an event for Queen Center for Progress in New York, which is one of the Home Depot's charities. And you had all the executives from the Northern President to all the executive vice presidents, and you had 450 golfers on 4 golf courses in New York. And we raised, I think, $1.2 million for that event. So, yeah, anything I can do to help, I will do. Because God knows they need help today. They need money, and there's so many different causes. And if anybody's out there,
to that end, John, what?
Yes.
No, I was just going to say, to that end, what events have you got coming up?
Well, I'm going down to Dallas. I'm doing a event that's again another Laughs with Legends, and I believe the charity is gonna be for the flood victims down in Houston. Then again, I'm going to be doing a few other cancer events, and then I had the privilege of going down to Super Bowl in Minnesota. I don't know how much I'm looking forward to that because I've been to Minnesota in January and February, but it should be a blast.
Well, that's great stuff, John. Let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the things you're doing, whether it's following you online or over social media?
Well, probably the best thing is just to follow me on Twitter because I pretty much post everything I'm doing, and it's at John Luke NYC. And if you want to chat on there, I'm happy to chat with all my followers. I like to interact with people.
Well, John, we hope you'll come back a little bit later on in the season. Maybe you got some little, more happy news with respect to your Jets. Maybe they're starting to put some things together, give you some happy memories, during the course of the season. And the best part having you on the show is not only getting your thoughts on your Jets, but it's also hearing about all the great things that you're doing for charities around the country, because you're fantastic with that.
Well, thank you. It's very kind of you to say that. And if any of your listeners out there have a charity and you're doing events, I do donate my services. So, hit me up on social media, and if I'm free and I can do it, we'll discuss it.
There you go. Thanks so much for your time, John. Always a pleasure for Bob and I to get to spend some time with you. And like I say, hopefully we get the opportunity to catch up with you a little bit later on in the season to see all the great things you're involved with. Thanks for your time tonight.
Well, thank you. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you,
all right,
John.
take care, John. That is John Luke, and again, you can find him he's been on Storage Wars. He does a lot of different things, as you heard, for charities, and then donating his time on top of that. He's a great follow on Twitter, and we can't thank him enough for his time. Hopefully we can catch up with him again real soon. All right, when Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on the Thursday Night Tailgate Spotlight on the Positive, hear which players are doing great things in their communities, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we'll do all of that on the other side of these words from our good friends over at Kyvan Foods and the Salt Creek Golf Retreat.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcon tight end, and I'm the owner of Kyvan Foods, and if you enjoy delicious food, you're going to love my Kyvan products, which consist of our honey apple salsa, sweet barbecue sauce, and an array of seasonings. For store locations, online orders, and recipes, check out our website at www.kyvan82.com. That's KYVAN 82.com. One taste, and you'll appreciate the goodness.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giant fullback Randy Manier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your rounds, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today.
Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
And we are back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're turning on our spotlight on the positive. Bob, what do you got for us this week?
We had mentioned this earlier this evening. We've talked about Roethlisberger, Chris, and I want to give a shout-out. We've done it before, but his foundation continues to do some great things. The Ben Roethlisberger Foundation, Chris, kind of does two different things. I mean, he does a lot of work. A lot of his monies go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I think we all know the kind of good things that the Make-A-Wish Foundation does. He's very into helping children. It happened way back 10 years ago when he met a 14-year-old who signed a contract with the Steelers there. That was pretty cool when he did that. But, now he's getting more into what he does with these service and canine dogs, Chris, which is pretty impressive. I've done work in it myself, but if you go to the page and you look under the foundation, it says right on that page, it says, "My dad instilled in me a love and respect for animals. This is a good way to combine that passion with a desire to support the police and fire departments, which deserve all the appropriate resources needed to protect our cities and neighborhoods and allow these brave men and women to arrive home safely." And what's cool this year, Chris, is he does a lot, of course, in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area for all these K-9 units in police departments. But this year, every city that the Steelers visit on the road, he is making a donation in that city or surrounding areas to causes like this. For example, before last week's game in Cleveland, Chris, he distributed grants to both the Lorain Police Department, this is in Ohio, and the Medina County Sheriff's Office. And the Lorain Police Department is going to use the funds that Ben gave them to update their K-9 training equipment, and the Medina County grant is going to purchase safety equipment for their K-9. So, I mean, this is pretty cool what Ben is doing, Chris. It's great. He's done it for about 10 years now. It's almost at the $2 million grants, $2 million in grants that he's given away. Of course, a lot of it's done in Pittsburgh, but now he's taking it on the road, and I think it's pretty cool, Chris. And there's big interest in it now every time the Steelers go on the road. So kudos to Ben. He continues to do great things off the field.
Yeah, that's something I did not know that about Ben. So kudos to him, and I certainly love it that he's doing it in Pittsburgh. But the thought that he's going to do it in their 8 road games as well, that's some great stuff, Bob. So kudos, agreed, to Ben Roethlisberger. This week I am putting the spotlight, Bob, on Eagle safety Malcolm Jenkins and his foundation. He raised $90,000 at his 3rd annual Blitz, Bow Ties, and Bourbon fundraiser to support youth programs and initiatives in the Philadelphia area. He holds a week-long summer camp for middle schoolers, and it's called by its acronym STEAM with an extra A, so 2 A's in there in STEAM. And the acronym stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, Athletics, and mathematics. Jenkins established the foundation to provide, experiences to youth that they might not ordinarily receive. They partner with Drexel University and their Excite Center to do cool things in their laboratory. They teach kids about those subjects. Again, science, technology, engineering, arts, athletics, and mathematics. And those subjects typically are taught separately. But what they do is they teach them, together, sort of, how they can be applied and utilized together. The thought is that they are hoping, to get the program right for kids to understand that, the only limit that we all have really is restricted by our own creativity. So by incorporating digital technology and artistic approaches, it allows the students to explore things like music and video games and athletics and bringing those all together in one environment, and how they can utilize those things and be creative in different ways. Jenkins was inspired to create this program by watching his younger brother, who was having difficulty learning in the classroom. He said his brother isn't a person who's going to learn by reading things in textbooks. So, his brother needs, hands-on sort of learning activities. So he wanted to create a program that helps kids like his brother not only learn, but also be creative by assimilating, again, all of those skills. So want to give a shout out to Malcolm Jenkins for putting, the program together, and for doing what he's doing to help kids improve their educational skills, Bob. So 2 really good stories, again, here tonight on our Spotlight on the Positive.
Best part of the show, and the great thing is we also talk to a lot of guys that do the same thing on the show, Chris, so it's always fun.
Yes, it is. All right, Bob, time for us to put a bow on this episode of Thursday Night Tailgate. We want to send out our thanks again to Herman Moore, Tony Collins, Ann Jewell, Paul Alexander, and John Luke for joining us tonight. And as always, Bob, it's a great time to get to spend my Thursday nights with you, my friend.
Same here, Chris, and tell me what's going on next week so we can do it again.
So next week, again, folks, like we mentioned at the top of the show, it's our 6th anniversary special next week, and we'll be inducting our 4th class into our guest Hall of Fame. And again, this year's Hall of Fame class includes the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio, Mr. Bo Bach, former Cardinals and Dolphins Pro Bowl linebacker E.J. Jr., former Bears and Panthers wide receiver Musa Muhammad, former Dolphins Pro Bowl left tackle Richmond Webb, former Jets and Dolphins defensive back Kerry Glenn, and former Steelers kicker Jeff Reed. So we hope you'll be with us next week. It's going to be a big show. We want you to be a part of it. I want to remind you how you can follow us on social media. Well, you can find us. We have our Thursday Night Tailgate page there on Facebook. Give us a like. That's important to us. Plus, both Bob and I have our own Facebook pages as well. Please check out our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com, to see who some of our future guests are going to be. Plus, you can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free on our site as well. On Twitter, you can follow me at CT Mascaro. Bob is at Bob_Lazzari, and the show is at TNT Podcast. You can also stream us for free on Podbean, our great friends over on Podbean. Can't thank them enough for having our show as a podcast, and we're featured right there in their sports and recreation section. We're also right there on their mobile app as well. Plus, if you love listening to different podcasts, they've got podcasts across every genre, so please go check them out online. Again, that's podbean.com. Bob, take us home, my friend.
All right, Chris, we look forward to next week, a very special night. And thanks to our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads, and to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for the upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we thank everyone tonight for listening. We appreciate you the most. Until next week, good night, Kevin. We miss you.
Hi, you've reached the High Fashion Hotline.
Hi, spiced apple cider is back, and so are the fall trends. My family needs new clothes to spice up our fall wardrobe.
Spice up their style with new jeans from Old Navy.
Old Navy?
Yep, right now, all jeans from Distress to Stretch are on sale from $15 for adults, $10 for kids. Plus, get up to 50% off store-wide.
All jeans on sale and up to 50% off store-wide?
That's right. All your family's favorite jeans are on sale now at Old Navy and OldNavy.com.
We can fall for that.
High Fashion, Old Navy. Valid 9/14 and 9/20. Excludes in-store clearance.
Progressive presents Mindfulness with Flow.
You are a mighty fortress of supreme knowledge. Progressive Direct has not only revealed their rates, but those of their competitors. If you were any more in the know, you would be drowning in, the know.
Compare Progressive Direct rates with competitors' rates, because knowledge is power. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.